What up, everybody? We are here for another episode of Reviewed, talking about the show This Is Us. You're here with your girls from the Sotong Sessions, Delia and Jazz.
What up, what up?
All right, y'all. So we got a new episode that came out this week, and it was a good one. It's going to have to hold us over for a couple weeks. Because as y'all know, This Is Us is taking another hiatus. Womp, womp.
My God.
This one's going to be a long one. It's like 3 weeks. It's going to be 3 weeks, y'all. So, you might have to go back and watch a couple of your favorite episodes to hold you over until May. But in the meantime, let's get into this episode that just happened this past week. Go ahead, Jazzy. What you thinking?
Well, are we just diving in? Because Randall and Kevin, whoo, Lord.
Yes, let's dive right in. Because that was the whole episode. The whole episode was Randall and Kevin, this brotherly situation that needed to be discussed and talked about and worked through. And apparently you can do that within a 45-minute episode. So
listen, I was like, as a person of color, I feel every bit of the frustration of this episode of like Randall. I don't know. It was just so much. I like what they tried to do.
Mm-hmm.
I like that they had them come together. I like that they had, some flashbacks of his childhood, of, where stuff came from. But like you said, to do it all in 45 minutes and try to wrap it up with a bow at the end, I was like, nah, like that's not realistic. This is a lifetime of hurt, a lifetime of discrimination, trauma, like you name it, that you trying to wrap up in one conversation. Like that's not real. So no. I really didn't like that.
No, I would have much preferred for this to be like the starting point.
Yeah.
Where they began to talk through things, and then we were, left to understand that there will be more that they will talk through and work through. But that wasn't the feeling that we got. It was like, okay, they're good now, and Randall can now have his ghost kingdom.
Ghost kingdom.
With his birth parents, because all is good. Like, come on, y'all. I was like, all right. Oh my gosh. I agree with you. I appreciated what they tried to do. I just think that it would have been a better story to tell if they had taken us through it over time. Yeah. But we've seen lately with This Is Us that they are really trying to do this like one episode, get it done, like get it in, get it done type of thing. Like it's been like that for the last like 2 seasons maybe. Whereas the first couple seasons, it took us the whole season to get through a character's like situation.
Yeah.
Or at least a whole half of a season to get through, you know?
Yeah.
But these last couple of, episodes, last couple of seasons, I don't know if it's because of COVID and they're just trying to get through the material quickly. It's just too fast.
It is. I mean, it did take us forever to figure out what happened to Jack.
Right.
Like that carried us through a long time. So I don't know, maybe because next season is the final season, they want to like speed it up. I don't know. Also, I thought for some reason, I thought that Randall would have his counselor facilitate their conversation, because it's very messy and overwhelming and difficult to just sit down and have that conversation. You know what I mean? So right. I was surprised that wasn't the case, because it's like, where do you even start with something like that?
Yeah, no, I agree. That was, I appreciated that Beth like took everybody at the house and was like, okay, I'm going to give you all your time. But it did feel like they really had an idea of how this was going to go and like where they wanted to start with it, which made it problematic to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think what you were saying about like the flashbacks and all that, I appreciated that. You could see that they were trying to give Kevin also kind of like show us his perspective at times too. So like Randall, we've noticed Randall gets like the special treatment, and then the way that Kevin has been perceiving that over the years, and the resentment that's built in, like, I want to sit there, and, I want to see Mr. Rogers too. And, you know, all of that stuff. They were trying to kind of give us Kevin's perspective, but I was just like, and then I'm glad that it didn't end, because I was actually getting real angry at one point, and like my eyes were rolling to the back of my head at one point when they were in the kitchen talking, because I was like, what is this? Is this how we're leaving this with this conversation here in the kitchen? Are y'all serious right now? You haven't even talked about nothing. Y'all haven't talked about nothing.
No. And that's what I'm saying. Like, having someone facilitate would help make sure that both people are feeling heard, because there was a lot of like talking at like, you can't get your point across fully, and it's like the other person is not hearing you, like they're not understanding, because that's not their lived experience. So it's so hard, like with something like this, it's a huge conversation, huge impact. Like, you can't just think that you're gonna gloss over something, or like you can't like break stuff down to people if they have no grid for it. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of work that you have to do just to get to a point where you're on the same plane of understanding. And that doesn't happen in one sitting, you know?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. So I did like that at the end of the episode, when they were sitting on the couch, that Kevin kind of finally said what he said.
Yeah. At the end, when he admitted it, that he had,
yeah. Because it's like this, like, we all know it, we all see it. You know what I mean? Randall has felt it. This has been the problem, you know, and until you guys can address that, then you really can't move forward. Like, you can't move forward towards healing and reconciliation and forgiveness, because you haven't addressed what's happened.
Yeah. You know, or even admitted that you played a part. Like he said in the beginning, his first defense was like putting it off on the prom date's father. Like, oh, I can't believe he treated you like that. He's racist. And it's like, nah, bruh, I'm talking to you about you.
About you. If I did anything, I was like, Randall, I was like, if you don't address that if right there. And then he did, but he did, but he didn't.
He didn't. Oh my gosh. D girl. Whew, my blood pressure.
I just sat there and I was like, okay, like, we know that there are Black writers in the room. We know that there are others in the room as well. And it felt like one of those episodes where they were trying to make it palatable to white folk.
Yes.
Like, it still felt like that. It still felt like they were trying to make it palatable to white people.
Yeah.
And that really disturbs me, because the episode was supposed to be about, in my opinion, was supposed to be about how Randall has dealt with being in a transracial family.
Yeah.
That type of episode cannot be palatable to white people. That's the problem.
Yeah.
So when you try to make that episode, you know, and make it comfortable for white people to tolerate, then you're just perpetuating the same bull.
Yeah.
And that to me was ultimately the problem of the episode. I did love certain pockets of it, and I appreciated what they were trying to do, but it still felt very safe.
Exactly.
And I was like, if y'all are gonna do this, you gotta do it.
Yeah.
You can't set it up and then back off. Like, you can't be about to swing and then drop the bat. Like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it felt like that they did with this episode.
I think I completely agree. Like, that's what you articulated. Because as I was watching it, I was like, no, like, you just articulated exactly how I felt watching it the whole time. And it's like, all we got from Kevin was this monologue of how, like, bruh, this is not the time for you to give one of your speeches. You're not listening. Like, you are not even listening on a basic level. He keeps apologizing. You don't even know what you're apologizing for. You're not even hearing the issues to warrant an apology. You know what I mean? Like, you're not even, there's no connection whatsoever. It's just like you said, I'm sorry if, like, that means nothing to us. You know what I mean? Like, that's almost the worst thing that you can do.
Right. That's the worst thing you can say to someone when you're trying to apologize. I'm sorry if what I did hurt your feelings. Like, what? That's not how you apologize.
It just, yeah, it was disappointing. And for me, I felt like it ended up being about Kevin again. And I feel like, honestly, kind of how you're saying, that's how it happens. As people of color, when we try to explain our plight to non people of color, it's like you get this, it ends up turning around on them and they feel guilty. They feel bad. And then, like Randall said to Beth, where does that leave me? You know what I mean? Like that, I feel like of all the interactions about race and about this issue, the conversation that Randall had with Beth while she was on the steps of the cabin or whatever, that was the most authentic, real, not watered down interaction that we've seen on the show regarding this issue. And I thought they were going to come with that for this episode. You know what I mean? So yeah, I was disappointed that they set it up and then they backed away.
Yeah. Because now I feel like they don't have any reason to bring it back up again, because it feels like they think that they've addressed it and they've worked through it, and now they're going to be best men. Like he's going to be his best man at the wedding, and like all is good,
Yeah.
And that part is disappointing, because we've been on this journey with Randall this whole season, for it to come to this kind of ending or closure, which I'm hoping it's not. Just feels it feels like a letdown, and the story's not finished, and it's not neat and tidy, like there's still so much more. You could even feel like they were trying to break up the energy of the scene by having them go outside and then being locked out and then going to the neighbor's house and the joke about the Manny and like all of this stuff. They're trying to break it up, as opposed to just being like, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to tackle. Point blank. Here we go, guys. Hope you're ready. You know what I mean? And I just feel like I would have respected the episode so much more if they had just done that, as opposed to trying to like make it work.
Yeah.
But oh.
And then it's like, too, for Randall, like Kevin saying like, oh, even when they were on the steps locked out of the older white lady's home, and Randall was like, yeah, this is my brother, I'm adopted. And she was like, oh, what great parents you have. And he's in the background like, yeah, great parents. I'm like, you need to fall back before I kick you off these steps right now. I promise. And I'm just like, there's this mentality in the Pearson family that like, they're the white saviors, you know what I mean? And that Randall owes them something, and that he should be eternally grateful that this white family took in this poor Black kid that got abandoned at the fire station, like.
Yeah, which he mentions and he talks about, and they start to go into it, but then like it gets broken up by the fact that they're walking back to the apartment. So like, it's not really hitting. Like he's kind of saying it in passing, like, did you ever think about how, being with y'all, like being adopted by y'all means that I was separated from my family. Let's sit with that for a second. Like, let that connect for a second. You know what I mean? It felt like it was just like, yeah. And then you see Kevin's face like, oh yeah. And then they moved on. It was like, no. Exactly. Do you understand? Like that was a huge point of realization.
Yeah.
And so, yes, while I am grateful, that doesn't take away from the fact that there's still this huge hole that I'm trying to figure out what to do with.
Yeah.
And so when you're telling me that I should be grateful and I should be happy about it, and I'm not allowed to be like upset here and there, I'm not allowed to feel any kind of way here and there, you're completely dismissing the fact that I have parents, birth parents that I knew nothing about until I got to my adult age,
Yeah.
And it was like, that could have been a really beautiful moment, but they just kind of washed over it. And I was like, no,
exactly. And I felt like that happened multiple times. And that's why I'm saying we needed a facilitator to get them to be like, let's pause. Like you said, let's sit with this. What are you feeling? What does that bring up for you? How did you perceive this? You know what I mean? Like, you really need to dig into each and every one of those, you know, issues one by one, rather than glossing over the entire thing and missing. Like you were saying, none of it hit. Like, and Kevin wasn't really, he wasn't digesting it. He wasn't understand. Like, there was just so much that just
seemed
rolled
to just
off. Yeah.
Right.
And I'm just like, oh man.
I agree. And then, you know, I couldn't help it, but then he was like, you said I was a bad actor. And then they had that whole joke in the kitchen. And I was like, face like, in my mind, I feel like Sterling is like, yes, dude. But
I don't know. Maybe this is a trial run, like a starting point for TV shows to be diving into this. I don't know. Maybe that's what it was.
I mean, because this is different. I will give them that. Like, this is not, we've not seen this kind of conversation begin to happen on television this way before. So I will give them that for the attempt. And like I appreciate what they were trying to do. It just felt like it fell with the buildup of everything. It just kind of crashed and burned at the end. And I would have much preferred them to just have taken it slow, or even just show us the beginning stage of it. Like, you ain't got to even show us the whole thing. We already know that there's no resolution that's going to happen right away. Like, we already know that. So you didn't have to try to get us to a place of like, everything is good. We know that that's not going to happen right away. And they could have still been like, okay, you know, you're my bro. I'm going to be your best man. We're working on things together, without it being like, let's tie this up and wrap this up into a nice little neat bow, because we just know that that's not what it would be.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, I don't know. We have 3 more episodes left after this 3-week hiatus. We will see how this season ends when we come back in May. And then we go one more season. So we'll see what they do with the last season of this show. Guys, let us know what you think about this episode. We love to hear from you, and we love to hear what you guys are thinking and how you felt like this episode went. Hit us up in the comments, like, subscribe, share, and we'll see y'all in a few weeks. Until next time.